Welcome. This is NKBA, and you are here for the second webinar of the month on the topic of designing and marketing with color. We want to thank Kohler for their generous sponsorship for the month of June for all of our webinars. And you're here for the 2019 Global Color and a sneak peek to the 2020 Color Design Trends with Ruth Ann Hanlon. She's the National Color and Design Manager with PPG Industries based out of Columbus, Ohio. And Ruth Ann, I'm going to unmute you. If you're ready, we're ready for you to get started. Thank you.
I am ready. Thank you so much, Debbie, and welcome everybody. As Debbie said, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and it is raining, and I think it's getting ready to storm. So I'm in the same boat as many of you with this lovely weather. I heard Buffalo mentioned, so I got to give a shout out. That's my hometown. So thank you for viewing from Buffalo. But as Debbie said, yeah, we're going to do something fun today. So our 2019 Global Color and Design Forecast, some of you may have seen it in Markets by You. We're going to do a recap of that. And then I'm excited to say we are going to do a sneak peek of the 2020 forecast. So this was, we did a soft launch this week at NeoCon. For those of you who were there, hopefully you saw a little bit of it. And if you're suffering from the NeoCon hangover and how very overwhelming it is, I'm with you in solidarity. I thought it was a really exciting show this year. There was a lot of energy, a lot of optimism, a lot of color, as we're going to see as we go through today. So we'll do the 2019 and then that sneak peek at 2020, which will be available in its entirety late August, early September. So if a chapter near you would like to see it, certainly reach out, let us know. We would be very happy to bring that to you. Before we get into the CEU itself, I just want to do the mini PPG commercial. I've heard people dialing in from all over, not just North America, but Germany and other areas as well. So just to clear up some of the confusion, we've had a lot of acquisitions over the years, which has been great. It brought us, with some exciting new programs and different products, and of course our footprint changed. But there were a lot of brands. So if you're familiar with any of these brands on the bottom, still know you can still deal with those locations and those contacts, but our brand has changed globally to PPG. So this is what you'll see on specs, on stores, on the product, on the labels, but everything else stays as is. And if you weren't aware, in addition to architectural coatings, we actually color and coat more surfaces than any other company in the world. So everything from automotive to aerospace. We do a lot of military equipment, every single Harley Davidson that has all has PPG coatings. And there's some pretty interesting R&D stories behind those. So next time you get a chance to talk with us in depth, would be very happy to share those with you. These images you see here, this is what is from what we call our consumer electronics division. So this is everything from appliances to cell phones, Beats by Dre. They really love our automotive finishes. And this is the segment that I think really tells us what's trending with consumers. You figure car colors, they're a major expense. They have to last at least 5 years, where cell phones are changing every 6 months, if not faster. So we have teams that are on top of all of that and very aware of, where consumers are going, where the demand is as far as color, and all that information is shared throughout the segments. As far as architectural coatings, you will see us on everything from residential homes to commercial venues. We do a lot of sports arenas. Falling Water, which is the one we're proudest about. We are partnered with the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation, and our coatings have been used extensively on many of those projects. And there's also a CEU specific to Frank Lloyd Wright. So that's another one. If down the road you would like to have some more information, we would be very happy to share that with you. So this is our global color team, and these are the stylists that compile, research, filter, edit, put together everything that you're going to see today. So these are stylists for all of those segments from around the world that are very much on top of what is happening in their area, what is consumers' moods and mindsets, how are we responding or reacting, where are our emotions at, because that all filters down to color and design. They also go to all the major industry trade shows to see where the manufacturers are going and where design is going. That's a small piece of it. The bigger piece is more, just what's happening to us in our part of the world. So in North America for architectural coatings, we do HD, we do IBS, we do KBIS. Of course, we just did NeoCon this week. The Shanghai Auto Show just wrapped out. So as we're speaking, this team is out there staying on top of what is happening so they can gather all that information and then put it in these presentations and bring it to you. So this is IDCEC accredited, and I know, Debbie, you're going to handle the NKBA credit, but if anyone needs this as well, feel free to reach out. My contact information will be on the slide as we wrap up. So let's start with 2019. For us at PPG, we've been working on the 2020 since January. We did the soft launch this week. So I have to keep reminding myself, we're still very much in 2019. It is, only June after all. And right now, trends are lasting about 5 to 7 years. When things were going, very well with the economy, it was more, like 10 years. When things were not going well, when things were going well, they were only lasting 3 to 5 years. But right now we're at about 5 to 7 year mark. So the 2019 is still, of course, very, very relevant. The overall theme for 2019, we called it We Are, because it was very much about being connected to your community and, respecting others and the collaboration. So even that We Are graphic you see, those individual bands of color represent different moods, different mindsets, different personalities, different cultures. But when you see them together, it creates this beautiful collective. So We Are is the theme for 2019. Our color of the year, hopefully many of you have seen it by now, is PPG's Night Watch, which is this very deep green, almost a very deep teal. It has a small undertone of blue into it. And you can see in some of these examples, it's beautiful. It's just a front door color. We've seen it used overall on both exteriors and interiors. Popping up quite a bit on the painted cabinetry, which still continues to trend. It's been in textiles. We've seen it in rugs and fabrics. We'll get into it in a little bit as to why it was chosen. Another aspect you may have seen, and this is our second year doing this, is we do a stain color of the year. And for 2019, I think it's more critical than, any year, leading up to it, these past few years. Wood is really on an uptick, and you've probably seen that not just in the marketplace, but these industry events, of course, materials and elements that are available. But it's going back to that, natural and authentic. So wood on not just on floors and stairs, but on ceilings, on feature walls. And this is in commercial and residential. Getting away in small part, and it is going stronger from the painted cabinetry and going back to the stained cabinetry. Well, Aspen's tan was chosen because it's kind of a bridging color from where we've been with the grays and moving to the warmer hues. So it's a beautiful stain that works if you do have painted gray cabinetry, or maybe you have gray furniture or gray, textiles. This is that bridging color will still work with those elements, but then it starts moving to warmer hues, which you'll see more of as we go through this presentation. So this slide shows the reason why Night Watch was chosen, and I think the first image sums it up the best. If you remember 2018, the color of the year was Black Flame, which was a black with a slight undertone of indigo. And that slide really represents where we were. We were in this period of, the black was chosen because it's protective, it's cocooning. There was a lot of fears out there from whether it be the major natural disasters or the mass shootings or the political climate, the economy. We were very much in a fear-based state. But then moving into 2019, this beautiful sense of optimism started coming to the surface and the rejuvenation. And that's what that slide shows, where we were in sort of this enveloping of the darkness, but then this growth and this life coming forward, which is the Night Watch. Greens, not just dark greens, but dark colors in general have become the sort of new feminine strength. If you think back, it used to be, clear-cut dark colors were masculine and pastel colors were feminine, and that's clearly not the case anymore. There's more of, a morphing of the two, so that the darker kind of military colors. It's also in reference to the hyper system, things like, I wish I could explain it better to you, but my brain just doesn't work this way. It's the hyper or Bitcoins and the blockchains. It's basically circumventing traditional institutions and finding our own path and finding our own way and finding that works for us. So if you look at examples like Uber and what that has done to the cab industry, instead of calling a cab and it might not be the most pleasant ride and they don't always have the best odor to them, or you take an Uber and you have lovely conversation and they have snacks and water and you can have your playlist and the cars are always clean and smell good. Or look what Airbnb is doing to the hospitality industry. It's ways of saying we're not doing this because that's the way it's supposed to be done. We're going to find our own way. And there's so many examples of that. But probably the biggest influencer for Night Watch is biophilia and anything related to nature. That is something that, excuse me, is very near and dear to us at PPG. If you've seen our presentations over the past few years, these are some of the slides referencing nature, whether it's in architecture, in design, in healthcare, in wellness, and it's all segments. It's education, it's healthcare, it's offices, of course, residential, and using ways to access nature just to make our lives better, to make those spaces better. I really love this quote by Frank Lloyd Wright. He says, study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will never fail you. He also said he believed in God, only he spelled it nature. So if you're familiar with his work and his organic architecture, you know what a big influence that was on him. So these are just some examples over the past few years of how biophilia has been utilized in style and design, and this particular slide shows even more moving forward. And I really like the example in the top center. That is Amazon's headquarters in Seattle. And if you think about what the model for office design was, it was the Google model and the bright colors and the open spaces, and it was the play, the primary colors and the slides between floors and garage bands set up in conference rooms. Well, now it's moving to biophilia and nature. And so they're literally working in a park and the benefits of nature, not just, the air quality and the aesthetics, but how it physically changes us and makes us more focused. And, there's better retention and less sick days taken and just overall satisfaction from the employees or students or, wherever this is utilized. So some other examples showing how green spaces in some areas, it's part of the zoning as they go vertical because we're going vertical. They're saying by 2050 that 80% of the world's population is going to be urban based. So they have to go vertical, but it's become part of code that they have to have so much green space per square footage. So you can see some creative ways to do it, whether it's on balconies or rooftops, but it's bringing into those green spaces to areas that wouldn't have it otherwise. So you're going to see a lot about biophilia and nature as we move through the presentation today. There's 4 major influencers for the palettes that we're going to show you for 2019. The first being ironic and iconic. And this is everything from the different cultural influences, specifically Asian and Hispanic, whether it be the bright colors, the images of nature, and utilizing those in both fashion and interior design. There is a 90s reference to it. The past few years, we've had an 80s reference, but as time has gone by and we're moving forward, as you guys know, trends are cyclical. Some come back. They come back in different forms and with different life and different messages. But they all do come back in certain ways at certain times, depending on what's happening in the world. So you will see a 90s reference to it, the gaming culture, anything that is technology and virtual. And we all know, the bright colors of our virtual world are much more saturated than what we see in nature or what we see in commonplace. But because of different generations and their use of or being just immersed in technology, all things technology at all times, we're seeing more and more of those bright saturated colors working into other aspects and elements as well. The second influencer we call redefining luxury. And this has been an interesting to watch come back. Luxury and glamour and excess it was quiet when the economy wasn't doing well. We still had it, but we called it stealth indulgence. It was on much more quieter level. It wasn't as showy because a lot of people were struggling financially. Well, now as the economy starts to bounce back, we're seeing luxury and glamour come back, but it's on a much different level than what we had before. It's rooted in tradition, so very much the Art Deco influence to it, but it's a conscious luxury. It's a more ethical luxury. That image of Vogue, that is the cover of their Paris magazine, which if you think about Vogue in the past, they didn't have faux fur even on the interior, let alone featured on the exterior. And we're seeing that on the runway as well. I think Karl Lagerfeld was the first to do it with his the faux fur. We're seeing, the vegan leathers and automotive and in home interiors. So luxury is back, but it's much deeper. It's on a different level than what we've seen in the past. The third influencer we call quietly powerful, and this one is very heavily linked to nature and wellness. Wellness continues to rise, and just being not just wellness for ourselves, but for our communities, for our planet. So you will see a lot of references here to nature, but it's very minimalistic as well. It's about getting rid of excess and clutter. It's a detox of clutter in our thinking, in our homes, in our meals, the ingredients and the products that we use. It's all about simplified and less being unequivocally more. And then the last influencer we call shifting intentions. And this one's kind of interesting because it is rooted to nature and the earth. It's that deeper connection. It's finding holistic ways and different paths than this mainstream, kind of like, we talked about with the hyper systems. It's finding our own path and what works for us. So whether it's, the food we eat, the medicine we take, the churches or what we consider churches that we go to, it's more about spirituality versus religion and definitely connection to where you are and in your community and your local and your tribes of people that share similar mindsets and values. So from those four influencers come these four trend palettes that we are going to now go through. And this slide shows you the color palette for each one of those trend stories. Now, keep in mind, these are virtual colors, so they're not going to be as accurate as, what you would see on the walls or in the spaces. But we do have tools that go along with this, and I'll tell you about those at the end on how we can get those to you. Another thing they did this year, which was very interesting, was they took all those global palettes you just saw and arranged them by hue. So you can see at a glance the uprise of the more organic colors, with all those greens in there and the blues linked to nature. But also interesting to see the purples coming back into the mix. It's been a while since we've had those purples and amethyst trending, but they're definitely here. And also you can see how many dark colors are utilized. And that has been, for me, is one of the funnest shifts I've seen in interior design is the acceptance and the use of the dark colors, which we'll see some examples of as we move through. So this shows Night Watch on how it can be utilized in the four different trend stories. So in With It, it's going to be fun and reflective, have a lot of life to it. And with Class, it's going to be more traditional, so the matte finishes. And Without, it's, because that's all about less being more, it's going to be a single hue or more monochromatic. And in With Spirit, you're going to see it with some darker colors and some purples and sort of that more ethereal spiritual aspect to it. So the first of the four trends we call With It, and this is the one that's influenced by that ironic and iconic. You can see it's a brighter palette, it's more saturated, it's just fun, it's lively, it's a little bit juvenile, but it can be a little rebellious as well, depending on how it's used. It's about being who you are and unapologetically so, but it's celebrating just different mindsets, different ways of looking at the world. The biggest one of this, though, is probably optimism. And if you think about it, the world hasn't changed drastically from where we were a year ago, but optimism is definitely on the rise. And I think that really speaks to human nature and just that, looking for hope and looking for light and enjoying life and the moment. So as we move through, you'll see how these colors can be utilized on spaces and all sorts of things. And my laptop is froze up. Oh, there we go. Apparently my laptop needs a cough drop as well. So in this particular slide, you see the different elements for the With It palettes. So lots of ceramics are being used and everything from automotive to interiors. and appliances and even electronics, but it's the more vibrant versions of it, the fun versions of it. You're going to see a lot of faceted materials, colored glass, colored concrete, tinted clear coat. That's been real popular in automotive, and I'm waiting for that to move over to, especially appliances and technology. You'll see another example as we move through how that can be utilized. For the exteriors, you're not going to see a lot of those bold, bright colors because depending on where you are in the world, they just don't fit with the surrounding as well. But if you look at these examples, there's still an awful lot of interest on these, and it's mixing those materials and mixing elements. The one on the right in the center shows, patinaed metals and patinaed woods as well in the different stains to bring in that interest and dynamic approaches to it without necessarily having to do it with just strictly paint color. Now for the interiors, you are going to see more color, especially in the private spaces. So the bedrooms and the bathrooms. The more public spaces, it depends on the user of the space. It could be a whole space or a whole feature wall, but maybe it's just a textile or a feature wall, just little bits of it, enough to express the personality of that homeowner and the user. This particular slide shows the consumer products and how this trend applies to it. So everything from drones, they have a pretty negative reputation, but they're putting these fun candy colors on them to make them look a little bit more aggressive. I love how iPhone has brought back the kind of the Swatch Watch approach, and I'm sure I just dated myself by saying that, but those of you familiar with Swatch, it's a way to put a different band on that day to express your personality or how you're feeling. Everything from flash drives to speakers. The images on the left, the image on the left, those are art pieces versus consumer products, but they're shown to show the mixing of the mediums and the materials and the colors and the textures to bring interest and character. I know the majority of you probably don't do automotive or aerospace, but we like to show these slides because color and design is crossing surfaces and segments faster than ever before. So what you see on a prototype vehicle tomorrow could be on your Keurig next month. So it's moving very quickly. And I also like to point out this vehicle in the middle on the left, that's that tinted clear coat. And that's been a fun thing in automotive. You're all familiar with the color shifting technology, or the different mica flakes that they've been doing on automotive exteriors. But now they're playing with these tinted clears. So that's a red vehicle, but there's a blue tint in the clear coat. And you can kind of see it in some of the lines on it's a way to bring out the design. So it's kind of very futuristic and forward thinking, but it's very sophisticated. So again, I'm very much looking forward to seeing that one move into elements that I can actually afford because I can't get that particular car. But it's very innovative, and it'll be interesting to see how it comes forward. So even in aerospace, if you're not aware, they're working on personal drones, which is a little bit on the terrifying side, but that's where we're going. But you can see they use these brighter colors, just to bring some lightness to it as well. So the palette you saw in the beginning and in the collateral that we can get for you, it's 20 colors per palette. So that is for your use. That is for designers' use. But that's too many colors for the average homeowner, or even for the media. They want to edit it down. So this particular slide shows the 5 colors that were chosen from that palette. Now, if you were looking this for automotive in Europe, they chose a different 5 colors, or aerospace, Asia would have pulled a different grouping of colors, but it all comes from that global core palette. But you can see the keywords for this are optimistic, happy, and exuberant. So then we move to with class. So this is the one that is influenced by the new definition of glamour and luxury. You can see it has some darker colors in there. The year before, this palette was all dark, with the exception of 2 colors were midtones, but it was a very dark palette, and it was about protection, it was about privacy, it was this void, it was this escapism from all the negativity and all the fear, but also still very much influenced by Art Deco, which was starting to come back. And you can really see it in the palette this year. So you have those dark colors, and the bronzes and the coppers in there are meant to reference all the metals that we're seeing, whether it be in furniture or light fixture or appliances or even home exteriors, which you'll see. So it's a blend of strength and intelligence and protection, but it's also glamour and lavish and luxury. You can see in the elements all of those metals, especially the richer shades of them, the warmer shades of them too. If you notice, you're not seeing a lot of grays and the nickels. It's more the coppers and the bronzes and the golds and brass. For the exteriors, if you guys have seen this presentation before, everyone knows I'm slightly obsessed with the structure on the left. That is a Lenny Kravitz project. Lenny Kravitz has a design firm, and this is one of theirs, but with the metal siding. I love the wide brass metal trim on the windows, but it also incorporates Art Deco with the beautiful mosaic tiles, but it's also wellness and biophilia with the living walls. It's just a great mashup of contemporary and traditional, and beautifully utilizing all of these materials and meshing them together. On the top right, that is Zaha Hadid's condos in New York City. It's right on the High Line. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend a trip. It's when you're standing in front of it, it's like it doesn't fit, but it fits perfectly. All the metal on the exterior is patinaed by hand. The interiors, you can kind of see through the photo, they are white on white on white on white, floor to ceiling glass, kind of ethereal, but yeah, grounded. But the example below that in the center, it doesn't have to be extreme with some of these. It's just a reimagined mid-century, colonial, center entrance colonial, where you have that aesthetic that we know and we appreciate and we're familiar with, but it has this new twist to it to bring it into the times, current times. And this slide has some great examples of those darker colors and, the fear no longer associated with them. You've all been there where you suggest a color to someone and their knee-jerk reaction is, oh my gosh, it's so dark. It's going to make the space look smaller. And that's where we were for so long. And I don't know who started that or why they started it. Would love to have a conversation with them. But as you know, the dark colors will not always, make a room look smaller. It certainly won't make it smaller. Excuse me. And these examples show those in action. And not only is it the dark colors being more accepted, they also don't have that masculine connotation to them. And these two show some great examples of that, whether it's, the bringing in, the metals or the softer colors and textiles, but it's using those in different ways. And I'm so sorry for coughing in your guys' ears. In consumer electronics, you can see the deeper, more luxurious colors and everything from appliances to even gaming controls. If you can see the image on the left, there's actually a stained wood, but in that very deep, dark blue color. It's been a long time since we've seen gold detailing on the exteriors of vehicles, but BMW and some other ones are bringing it back. So it's the dark colors, but mixing it with the metals to have that more luxury. It's a little bit difficult to see, and I'm not sure what device you're viewing this on, but the vehicle on the top left, it's that very deep green, but it has the metallics in there. The mica, it's just very deep, very luxurious. Almost looks like a velvet almost. So these are showing some examples of not just aerospace, but you can get a very high-end custom kayak as well with those exotic woods and the black lacquer finishes. A vehicle on the top, or the airplane on the top left, is actually, company is 80 years old, and they just brought this plane back to celebrate their anniversary year. It has a retro look to it, but very glamorous. And this is what with class was narrowed down to for the residential side of it and the media side of it. So it still has those dark colors in there, but then the copper to reference metals, and it's a little bit lighter, but still has that luxury and glamour to it, but that classic connection. So the third one we call without. And this is in reference to that quietly powerful wellness, less being more, and the connection to nature that you'll see as we move through. So you can see all those organic greens. The palette last year was similar as far as mood and story, but it was much more toned down, very subdued. They were very muted colors, still linked to nature, but much softer than what you see here. But with that optimism that we have moving forward, you see some of these brighter colors coming back with it as well. But again, still linked to nature. The materials, you can see they're either monochromatic. There's not a lot of contrast of color or contrast of sheen. They're very soft, and you can see with the trazos, still having that link to nature as well. For the exteriors, not a lot going on as far as contrast, but certainly a lot going on with interest. So the all black house, which that's been one of my favorite things to see. And this I've seen in all parts, from Ohio to Salt Lake, to Indianapolis, in Florida, California, exteriors being painted black or stained black. If that was something I would have talked about 3 years ago, you would have all thought I was crazy. But now it's not going mainstream, and it's not going to go mainstream, but it's become much more commonplace. And I'm slightly obsessed with that too, so I'm happy to see that. And also Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water. So this is the first time we've had one of his projects in the content, but his organic architecture fits perfectly with it, blending with nature, being one with it. The home on the left, obviously it's painted black. Their way of bringing the greens of nature in was actual nature. So, the shrubs and the lawn, and bringing in nature that way to soften that facade, because, with the dark colors and the strong lines, it could be really severe, but with, the bit of stone that was added in nature, it really softens it. So the interiors you're going to see are much more sparse, but they're certainly not sterile, and that's achieved with the use of the woods, whether it be stained naturally or in some of the colors, as you see in examples on the left. But there's not a lot of clutter, there's not a lot of excess. They tend to be more open, but very clean, clean thinking and clean aesthetically as well. Consumer electronics, just like with the other examples, monochromatic, not a lot of contrast, just very fluid. And whether it be, the single hues, single sheens, but pared down and simple. Even in automotive, if you look at that vehicle on the right, there's no hardware as far as the handles protruding from it, no logos on it. It's just very fluid and clean. But then you can see the vintage Porsche they use on the left to show the use of the organic colors, specifically the green on that vehicle. In aerospace, so some interesting things going on. That's a train on the left in Japan, but you can see, how monochromatic is with the white, but then they have that reference of green and nature on the carpeting. The Hyperloop, which I'm very excited about. If you're not familiar with that, it's a fun thing to look into. I'm in Columbus. To put an example, it's supposed to go from Columbus, Ohio to Chicago, Illinois in 20 minutes. I just drove it last night. It's 6 hours, and then you throw in traffic. So think about how that could change things. I could live in Columbus but work in Chicago and get there much faster than it would take me to drive to the northwest side of the city. So all sorts of innovation going on that is disrupting and drastically changing our futures. This I think is very interesting. So this is the palette it was pared down to for residential and the media, and you can see it's just monochromatic shades of brown with the black and white in there. Exactly 10 years ago, we had this same palette, but it was called Canvas, but it was shades of gray with a black and white. And if we think about it, gray has been trending since 2008 when the economy started to run into trouble. We went back to what was safe, what was familiar, but it was the grays we went to, and we've been looking at and specifying and buying and surrounding ourselves with grays for 10 years. And if you think about it, not too many trends have lasted more than a decade, if any. So this is a big shift. We're back kind of full circle to where we were with this monochromatic palette with the accents of black and white, but instead of the shades of gray, we're in shades of the browns. And that's something we've really seen out there, not just in the marketplace, but some of these industry shows, or you're reading it in blogs, is time for something new and different. So the last of the 4 stories for 2019 we call With Spirit. So this is about those shifting intentions. It is linked to spirituality and just different ways of thinking, and of course the earth, but it's also beyond that. It's the link to the galaxy, the night sky, and you see all the interest in whether it be space travel, the solar eclipse, dark sky certification. I just heard the other day they're now doing where you can go to space for 30 days to the space station, and I'm sure I'm getting this verbiage wrong, but it's $35,000 a night, but I think it's $5 million to get there and back. So for those of you who are really looking forward to spending some time up there. It is getting closer and closer. And of course, there's several companies working on it, but NASA is working on a program as well. And it's just that interest in what's beyond us. And I think it is somewhat of a carryover of the green movement. But you can see that represent this palette, with the really deep colors, the blacks, the purples, kind of mystical and and visionary and cosmic as well. So the elements for this one, some of these materials look like, they did, fall from the sky, whether it be, the meteorites, but even, the molten sort of liquid metal, of course, the dark colors, all speaks to that cosmic, and just deeper thinking, deeper meaning as well. Another Frank Lloyd Wright example in the center there, his Taliesin, and that was chosen because of how perfectly it fits into the landscape. And if you've been there, you're almost right on top of it before you even see it. It is so perfectly camouflaged into the landscape. We were doing some maintenance work there, and we were actually on the ground with the fan deck matching dirt because that's how much they wanted it to blend in. So that, a little bit more historic property, but you can see some more contemporary versions of it as well. All of these, it's that connection to nature and the outdoor spaces. That home on the left, every interior room has an exterior room to go along with it. And it's about blurring those lines. This home on the bottom right, you can see the exterior, how they did as little as possible to disrupt the landscape, including, as you can see here on the bottom in the center, building the home around boulders. But you can see that, more use of those darker colors, not quite as heavy as what we saw in with class, with using the purples and the nuanced neutrals, and the off-whites and the lighter colors. It has a lighter overall feeling to it than what we had in with class, but the dark colors are still very much a part of the schemes and the grounding element in them. And consumer electronics, definitely the future forward aesthetics here. That center on the right, those are actually speakers, and you put them on different pressure points, and it's a way to, almost like acupuncture, to have the vibration or, the depth of the music. It has healing, restorative qualities to it. In automotive, you can certainly see the futuristic approaches to it. It's been a long time since we've seen purple on interior stylings, but it is something that is being shown and seen at the auto shows and coming our way. And interesting, this is the only example of rose gold in the presentation. Now that's quite a bit of it on the right. You can get your garage to match your vehicle. But rose gold has been a fun element to watch. And of course, it's never taken over the way, the brass did and nickel before that and oil rub bronze, but it's not going away either. There's been subtle representations of it, and I think we're going to continue to see that as well. In aerospace, they using the more, again, the purples, that's virgin, but the deeper blues as well. That is Uber Air on the left, which if you weren't aware, that does exist. It's in a few cities. I believe it seats up to 12. They're not autonomous. Those are manned, so thank goodness. But something they're working on, and it will be coming to a city soon near you. So here's how the palette was edited for the residential side. So it still has those deeper colors in there, but then the uses of the coppers and the terracottas, which has that earthy connection to it. So it's very mindful, very communal, and then of course that connection to the earth as well. So this is where we are in 2019, and now I'm very excited to show you where we are moving for 2020. So this is the overall theme of it. We call it flow. And as we go through, you'll see there's different reasons for why it was chosen. And drum roll, I feel like we need a drum roll. If you were at NeoCon or if you saw any of the, the blogs or the press releases that started to go out Monday, the color of the year. If we were live, we would have guesses, maybe prizes, but we'll just have to, y'all can just shout it out to the air if you're aware of it. So if you haven't seen it, it is Chinese porcelain, and it is this. It's not a mid-tone. It's not a deep tone. It's somewhat in between. And so the big question is, why blue? Why was it chosen? And there's actually a lot of reasons behind why blue was chosen for 2020. It's both secure and it's promising. It's the night sky. It's that galactic influence to it. It's the sky. It's the sea. It's calming. It's dreaming. This is a perfect image of it. And I love how he's in this quiet, serene space, but then if you look in the distance with the city lights, it's that escapism from all the chaos right now. It's also the color of knowledge and trust and integrity and stability. We know that from marketing use and logos. A lot of banks use it. It's that color of a trust and knowledge, but it's also inspirational. And with it because of that, connection to nature. It's also one of the best colors to venture away from the neutrals. So if you have one of those clients that is still in the gray or the beige phase, but they want to try colors, blue is typically the easiest way to venture into that. There's also a great backdrop for all these bold colors that we're seeing in the marketplace. We saw it a couple years ago with Black Flame, the brighter colors on the black, and it definitely has that pop, but it was almost more, I don't want to say aggressive, it was just more severe. Where the blues like this, it still allows those colors to pop, but it has more light to it and more levity as well. But the big story for 2020 is so Chinese porcelain was chosen as the color of the year, and that's in part for the media. They want one color, but it's really blue is the color of the year for 2020. This shows the entire color strip that Chinese porcelain is on, and any one of those could have been the color of the year. And actually, at the global meeting this year, there was a lot of discussion. Was it going to be a light? Was it going to be a mid? Were we going to go dark again? Which direction? And it was almost universally or equally represented. So it could be that entire color strip, could be, or just the blue story itself. So I pulled these. These are from IBIZ or IBS, KBIZ, and even HD, showing not just blues, but specifically the Chinese porcelain blues in action. So whether it's on textiles, on cabinetry, on tiles, and different ways of seeing it in the marketplace. And I just put this together for you guys this morning. These are some examples of it from NeoCon this week. So as we walked around the different floors, blue was definitely a big story, but Chinese porcelain in particular, we saw quite a bit of, including this lovely gentleman on the bottom right. He was a vendor near us that was wearing a suit coat that was Chinese porcelain. So we made him sit in the booth and get his photo taken with a swatch. But and you can see as you look at some of these examples, it can be, as we've seen in some of the trend stories, it can be monochromatic as a single hue. It pairs great with other hues or other values of it. So very flexible as far as how these colors can be used moving forward. We also did a copper color of the year, or I'm sorry, metallic color of the year, and Hush Copper was chosen because it's kind of in between the rose golds and the coppers. It's a little bit deeper like a bronze, but it pairs beautifully with the blues, specifically Chinese porcelain. So I'm going to quick give you a sneak peek of the 2020 Global Color Design Forecast. As I said earlier, this will be available late August, early September. So if you'd like to see it in its entirety, we'd be more than happy. We have a whole team of color design specialists that are more than happy to bring it to you. These are some of the influencers for the trend palettes that you're going to see. Probably the biggest thing is just this constant change. We know that we've been in the state of change for a few years now, but it's almost gone to another level. We're not just changing, we're being reshaped, dramatically reshaped. Our world, our marketplace, our mindsets. And we're also seeing this responsibility. We're taking responsibility for ourselves and our actions. Corporations are taking responsibility for their words and their actions. I just saw quickly a thing yesterday. There's new Twitter war now going because Sephora offended somebody, and so they're shut down, like instantly. They shut down, they're addressing it, they're taking care of it. It's this no more looking the other way or brushing the carpet. It's this responsibility. And we expect these corporations and these companies we deal with to have responsibility as well. And then, of course, sustainability and the evolution of the LEED movement. That is never going to go away. That is not a trend. It continues to just evolve and intensify. Technology is the third biggest influencer. You cannot talk about trends, you really can't talk about anything without talking about technology because it is having such a major influence on all aspects of our lives. So from those influencers, whoops, I'm sorry, my computer's jumping around here. Speaking of technology, clearly I'm having issues with it. So these are the three core stories that we're going to be showing for 2020. On the Move is the first of them. The emphasis of that is all on creativity. It's all about abundance and imagination, but it's not an abundance of things, it's an abundance of joy and experiences. The second we call At the Core, and that is an emphasis on balance. Balance has become a very big trend word, whether it's finding that balance between work and life, or the planet and our homes, or sustainability and quality, and it's finding that not necessarily in between, it's a way of blending them together and pulling out the best aspects of each quality. And then the last one we call In the Know. And the emphasis for this one is knowledge. And this is about its art, its sciences, its tradition, but it's using them as bridging ways to where we're going as we move forward. So it's about innovation and contribution as well. Okay, my computer is not, there we go. So I think this one is exciting. One of the biggest trends right now is just that color is back. And we've seen that for the past about 6 to 8 months in all aspects, whether it's fashion or home decor, automotive, aerospace. It's all things color. It doesn't have to be a single hue. It's just this appreciation and acceptance and craving for color. So here you see the three core palettes for the trend stories that we're going to have moving forward. If you remember the slides back when we started, there was palettes on there that had, a lot of more subdued, muted colors, and they're still here in bits, but on a much smaller scale than what we've had for the past few years. And if you look, there's not that many grays in there either. So again, it's those moving away to the more youthful, exuberant, warmer, just comfortable colors than where we've been with all the grays we've had. So the first of the tree stories, the On the Move, you can see it's very bold, it's creative, it's all about happiness, it is youthful, but confidence is there too, and this different kind of strength. It's that strength of confidence and the strength of being comfortable with who you are and where you are. You can see the mood for it. It definitely has a nostalgic twist to it. And I thought was very big at NeoCon. I'm still processing the trend report, but there was a lot of, 60s influence to it, whether it was the macrames and the plants and nature there was so much of that. So that you can see how it's used here, but then in a way that brings it to where we are now. So whether it's by, the use of colors or the patterns, mixing and matching is going to be big. So whether it's, mixing patterns, mixing colors, mixing elements. I love this piece on the bottom left where they replace one of the legs with a pottery and just totally, turns the whole thing upside down. So the roots of that piece, you can see some mid-century modern aesthetic to it, but then they went bam and threw this leg on there, which is a great way to sum up this palette. It's what we know and what we trust, but it has fun and youth and life to it. So you'll see lots of geometric shapes and the circles. The patterns are going to have, sort of that, nostalgic look to it, but then, the strength of the geometric forms has that structure to it as well. So it's fun, but it's sensible at the same time. You can see the global infusion in the details. We've been seeing a lot of fringe and tassels, ropes, and those textiles. So some of these are obviously very bold, but it's using color. I'm so sorry. In much bolder ways that we've seen in quite some time, and just using it to express whether the intent of the building or maybe the cultural area, but it's definitely very spirited and original. So the second of them we call At the Core. So you can see this one has some more grounding to it. It's more calming and serene, but it's not the calming and serene we've had the past couple of years that were very, very, very quiet. It has some more depth to it, some more saturation, but overall it is still very calming. It's a comfortable palette, but with purpose to it. Introspective has been a big word, looking inwards to, what can we do to make ourselves better, or, to make our home better, how can we help our community or help the planet or beyond that. So it's looking inward for solutions, but these are also very nurturing colors as well. The mood for this is it's that purpose and long lasting. We've been in a disposable society for quite some time, and it's nice to see the movement around that and finding things that have substance and have longevity to them. It's interesting the cork there on the bottom in the middle. We saw quite a bit of cork going around neocon as well. And the botanicals, this too, I think it was one of the strongest messages of neocon was just how much of that there was, whether it be in print or in actual plants, but it's or hemp, those natural materials. I love these light fixtures on the right where it's the skeleton of a leaf structure. So it can be either using botanicals and florals and colors, or it's just the structure of them as well. But expect to see a lot more of that as we move forward. It's already popping up quite a bit in fashion. So the materials you can see they're softer. You're going to see a lot of rounded shapes. I love these speakers on the bottom right. Those particular ones, they have the rose gold finish on it, but all of these round, soft shapes to them. And the matte finishes. So getting away from, the more the glosses and the reflective. It just kind of conveys substance and depth to it as well, but also quietness. See more of those rounded forms, the softer colors. This one certainly has a more feminine aesthetic to it if you subscribe to the traditional views on color palettes. But it's feminine and soft, but it definitely has that strength to it and substance as well. The textures, it's just comfortable. It's warm. It's cozy. Kind of the hygge that we've had for the past few years. The new thing is they're calling it Japandi, so it's kind of a blend of Japanese and Scandinavian, and finding the blend between the two. I love some of these consumer products with the pleats and the folds. It almost has that Zen quality to it. There was a Zen garden at Neocon, for those of you who saw it there, and it somewhat reminds me of that. It's just the repetition of the lines and and then the softness you just see on some of the curves on the right as well. The structure and the architecture. This was designed for a musician, and it's meant to reference sound waves. So you can see how not just the roof, but the stairs, it's using architecture and form to convey, what's most important to him, but just the curvatures of it alone, even without the connection to music, it has that flow to it and sensorial approach. And then the last one we call In the Know. So this is somewhat of a carryover of what we had with the new luxury last year, or this year, because it's still 2019. So it is grounded. It's all about stability. It's solid, that responsibility, whether it be what we expect of ourselves or others. Sustainability, that's somewhat influences all of the trend stories, but it's that knowledge, it's intelligence, it's analytical, and some of the darker colors in there still for that strength and stability and protection. I really love this space. It's a hotel in Milan that uses these colors perfectly. It has that influence of Art Deco to it, so with the brasses and golds and some of the patterns that are used there, but definitely looks 2019 with this color palette that's used, and it's just a great mesh of bringing what we know and what we appreciate to where we are now. A lot of natural materials or a reference to natural materials used in these, whether it's the wood or the marbles and stones, or just a reference to them. And you can see the darker colors on the left, how they're balanced nicely with some of the brighter, lighter colors on the right. More that Art Deco influence, but again, blending it with where we are now, even using today's technology, but referencing just the whole, mood and mindset of that particular period. So again, mixing the deeper colors that you see on the top there, and then balancing it with one of the more earthy versions on the bottom. For the finishes and textures, think luxury, think glamour. So the velvets, those continue to trend. Not only are they glamorous, but they got that tactile that's just so lovely. But it's also, they're bringing back the Art Deco and the more glamorous eras. You can see a couple of the metallic colors infused into the palette. So the Champagne Dreams and the Flintlock, along with the Celestial Blue and the Cinnamon Spice, because we are going to continue to see metallics trending as we move forward. So the connection to nature, whether it be, the mineral materials to it, that shower tub on the top, which is a rock. You can just have that right in the middle of your bathroom and be taking a shower inside of a rock. So that connection to the earth and different minerals. And I think this one's pretty neat. It's nature's camouflage. So using those earthy colors, especially the terracottas and the clay colors, but then bringing in, other aspects of it to, again, to where we are now in this time and frame, but it's nature and what we know and what's familiar and what we appreciate. And then lastly, some of the architecture for in the know. You can see some reference to traditional and what's familiar, but definitely future forward and more of those darker colors on the exterior. So expect to see that to continue as well as we move forward. But also with this one, it's integration into nature and our surroundings and the landscape. So that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes the CU. Just showing you one more time, the color of the year and the metallic of the year. And I want to real quick just go through some of our color tools if you don't yet have them. I know this is a lot of information, and we went through even more today because we did, both 2019 and 2020. So these books go into it in much more detail. So if you don't have one yet, I'll give you my information. Feel free to contact me. You can also order them from our website. The 2020, as I said, will be available, that book, in August or September. We did have a short run for NeoCon, and I hoarded all the ones that were left over. So get with me. We have some orders going out being processed from the show, but any that are left, you guys are, I saved them knowing we were going to be doing this today as well. So everything from our fan deck, our portable kits, our larger swatches, our top 50 book. If you don't yet have these, feel free to let me know, including our Frank Lloyd Wright collection and our Vincent Wolfe. If you use BIM or Revit, our library is available there as well. And that concludes it. So thank you all again for your time and dealing with this cough. And huge thanks to Debbie, who had to be more than patient with me in my schedule to get all of this to come to fruition. So big thank you again to Kohler and, of course, NKBA for allowing us to do this.
Well, thanks so much, Ruth Ann. This has been great. I apologize that your voice is probably, you're not going to be able to talk for the rest of the day, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if scheduling this the day after NeoCon was the excellent idea or not an excellent idea.
But anyway, I want to thank you so much. It's such great information here. And I just quickly, there was one thing that came into play here. Someone was asking a question about what your take is on the recent Euro kitchen trend with the dark cabinets and the dark countertops. She says, as designers, this is task-related room, and the functionality of dark doesn't work in task spaces. You'd need to have so much light to offset that non-reflective paint quality. So do you have any thoughts on that, Ruth Ann?
Yes, well, absolutely, and definitely the light quality, whether it be, any natural that's available or any that is added to it. And of course, the space is going to dictate where it's going to work best. So in certain situations, maybe it's just on, the base cabinets or the island cabinets, or, maybe it's not the whole room. But we have seen this craving for these darker spaces, which goes against, where we've been for the past few decades of how, dark spaces, are not conducive, especially for task. And that's where the task lighting would come in. But there is this big shift of people wanting these dark spaces. And I don't know if it's the cocooning of it or the atmosphere it creates. I know myself, my master bathroom is black, and it's my favorite room in the house. And I don't know if it's because it's it's an easy way to wake up in the morning. It's not jarring, and at night it's kind of. I think it just depends on your personality. But that is a great point, because as these darker colors continue to trend and continue to be, promoted by manufacturers and blogs and all that, we are going to get more interest in it, but they are not going to be the right thing for every space, especially, where those tasks are important. You don't want to be using sharp knives in dark spaces, that aren't well lit. So I think we're just going to have to watch it as it evolves, but more importantly, just really analyze the space, and if it can't be used in its entirety, of bringing in enough of it to convey that look without changing the function of the space.
Great. That was a great answer. And I'm not seeing any other questions here, but lots of people are telling you in the chat, you probably can't see it, but wonderful presentation. They're thanking you. And of course, NKBA thanks you so much. It's been a pleasure working with you. I want to thank Kohler once again. And I hope your voice gets better soon.
Thank you.
And you have a great day to all of you out there too. And appreciate your time, Ruth Ann.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. We were looking forward to this, and hope to meet you all or see you all soon.
Okay, and so just quickly, people are asking about the ordering those items. So Ruth Ann's email is here on the screen, and I'll send it to all of you tomorrow with a recording.
Yep, feel free to reach out, or you can go to our website, which is ppgpaints.com, and order them through there. But feel to reach out, and that way I can get you the new tools as they're available in the fall. And kind of another sneak peek, we have a collection of brand new colors. Well, they're not new colors, a new color collection that is going to be a supplement to our fan deck coming out in October. So I'll start a list going to make sure that you guys get that as soon as it's available. A lot of exciting stuff going on right now.
Great, Ruth Ann, thanks so much, and thanks to all of you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.